What do you think the first step should be for whoever's responsible for the writing? Bronagh, can you?
I think I mentioned this before, but I do a Bible. And it's just so happened that the jobs that I've had to always submit the Bible, and that is the world, the setting, the characters, their background, and it's just something I keep so that I can always refer to and try to be true to. And I do that before I start a scene breakdown, and the way I like to work is to do a pretty strict scene breakdown. So it's basically the script, what will hopefully be the script, but it'll just be broken into the scene heading and then a paragraph of what happens in that scene, the point of the scene basically. I just have to get to the point in those lines, and I do that for each of the scenes. So it looks like a pretty weird script because there's no dialogue or anything like that, but that's what I then write from, so that as I'm writing.
Give me an example of what one of those lines would be.
So for a TV show that I write for, it would say the community or the university classroom, Leach goes to tell Carly that he doesn't want her to move out, but Meadows shows up and prevents him from telling her how he really feels. Done. That's the point of my scene, that's the crux, and I have to deliver that. Doesn't, you know, I can set it up and put my dialogue around it, but I have to deliver that point in that scene in order to need technology.
The computer disagrees with you, Bronagh?
Always disagrees with me. Yeah, it just has to be straight to the point, so that I know that if I'm writing and I've thought, oh, this is really funny, and I'll start it here and I'll start it there, and I haven't actually delivered the point of the scene, then I know that I've gone off track and it'll get cut. So that's how I work. But everyone has a different approach.
I mean, the good thing about what Bronagh's talking about is because if you're working on television, you're not on your own. You're either with a number of writers, and you'll also have producers, and then eventually the directors will come in and have input as well. So that it is just like a recipe, isn't it? Everybody agrees what the final meal is going to be.
Yeah, there's going to be no big surprises. Yeah, everyone's working from the same kind of sheet. I mean, it's up to me. I can throw things in if I have ideas, but yeah, it'll be decided on as a group, from producers to directors to maybe the other writers, because it might affect their episode. You know, I can't just kind of throw stuff in if it's going to throw their story off. So in TV it is very much by committee, which is different, I suppose. If you're on your own, writing your own screenplay, you're in charge. You know, before it gets to that stage, you're probably in charge more of the decisions.
Or let loose.
Yeah.
in charge, but not maybe in control.
Yeah.
I mean, for writing a feature film, what I would tend to do, unlike, because John and Michael work together, you'll have your own kind of process, but what I have learnt is more efficient for me is to write it like a short story, and I'm not a short story writer, but to write a treatment which isn't as blunt as a synopsis, but it is really, it can be 2 or 3 pages, or it can be 10 pages, but it's starting, you know, things as basic as, you know, the 2 characters meet, they do this, the next scene can be, you know, they something happens to them, and it is a very kind of cold and analytical way of writing a story. It's not like people are going to go, oh, that's beautiful writing, because you're not really going to show it to too many people. It's not about convincing people how beautiful the writing is, it's about knowing, again, it's great that I write this stuff down because I forget lots of things. So when I get to page 7 or 8, I can go back and go, all right, yes, that connects to something earlier on. So as much as possible, I don't go anywhere near writing scenes or dialogue until I know the story that I want to tell. Because I've fallen into that trap many times before, and you can get so excited and you can write really funny stuff or really moving stuff, and then if you can't find the story to put that into, you've got to throw it away. So it's really important. It's similar to what Bronagh's saying, is that whenever I start breaking it down into scenes, then I know that the scenes are there for a reason. Because we can get very up ourselves in regard to writing things. And it can be a great way of distracting yourself if you're not sure about the shape of your story. Is going, oh, well, I'll just have fun with the characters in this moment. But it's just wasting time to a certain extent. So that's what I will try and do as much as possible, and that's really, really hard. But if you can crack it, whether it's a TV episode or a series, if you can crack and get the story that you're happy with, and it's good enough, then you can show it to people that you trust or respect their opinions on. If you crack the story at that stage, it's hard, but then if you get it right, it's it's like being let loose and being free, and you can go, right now I know what that scene's going to do, and I can have fun with it. And it's like colouring in, if you've got, or painting by numbers, if you've got the painting, and you've got all the little patches and stuff, then for me it's like, okay, I can go in there, I can do this and this, and I know I'm not wasting my time because it fits in an overall big picture. And that's the way that makes sense to me, to try and maximise the use of time.
So it doesn't necessarily read well, but
no.
It shows you the whole structure of your story then, and
yeah, it can be as brutal as, yes, like Chris and Andrea meet on the flight. They obviously hate each other. They're never going to be together, and then 10 pages later, they're getting married. But it's as brutal as boom, boom. It's just it's an A to B to Z of a story, and but you've got to be careful who you show that to, because you don't want to show it if you're trying to snag the best actor in the island or in the business, and you show them that, they'll go, well, I don't know anything really about my character here. It's just a story. And the actors will want to know where they're coming, where it's all from their point of view, why they're in the story and what they're feeling. So you've got to be careful who you show it to. But it's for this process, it's ideal for you guys to do that. 2 or 3 page, even a 1 page short version of going, this is the story, and do we like this, and do we like ending up here? If we don't like ending up here, then we've got to take a different route to get there. But it saves so much time if you can do that.
And is there a name for that draft?
Well, I just call it a treatment.
Treatment?
Treatment is usually what it's called.
Yeah, we do treatments as well, and like a treatment is a bit of a catch-all term. Sometimes it's like the thing you describe like a short story.
Yeah.
Other people just write out 1 line for each scene and call that a beat sheet, and they all come to the same thing. It's preparatory work before coming to, and Mike and I do the same. And especially because there's 2 of us, that we both have an agreement then. This is broadly where the story's going. Writing into the void almost. Everyone's tried it at some point, and it's never worked out for us. You start out telling one story, you end up telling another story. If the other story was better, that would be great, but by and large it isn't.
And the difference is in novels, you hear novelists talking about, well, my character took me off in this direction. And in a novel you can do that as long as you get back onto the train again, but in the film you can't.
No. And these treatments or beat sheets, whatever you want to call them, to just say, something as basic as in our film, Sandy and Robert meet for the first time. Robert catches Sandy shoplifting. That would just be our note. That's all that scene is about. On to the next scene, they go to the police station and confront each other about it. And that's, And when you get to the end of it then, because we were talking with our group in there about structure, the end of the first act, the midpoint, end of the second act, and so on. That can help you do that in quite an economical fashion, rather than spending 2 or 3 months writing a script that you don't know whether it's going to work or not. You can get something like this out in a weekend or at most a week, and then you can show it to people or the people that you're working with and say, what do you think? And often they'll say things that their only note might be, see at the end of the second act, that feels more like a midpoint to me, move that back. And to hear a note like that, at the earliest stages is really helpful, because you say, well, it only took us 3 days to get to there, and it only take us a day to go fix that. But if you've written a screenplay and someone says, your page 80 should actually be your page 50, you've done all that work. And also because of the detail, as you'll know, anyone who's written scripts before, as you'll come to find out, the sort of detail in the script, everything's knitted together like a jumper. Everything, character, dialogue, storyline, and you start pulling one of those, strings, and the whole thing just tends to come apart. So we just find it saves a lot of heartache to just get the beats out, and then as much as possible stick to them. Agree what you're going to do, and then do it. If you look like a mountain climbing analogy, the story beats or the scene things we're saying, it's just like it's one handhold here, am I safe? Yeah. And then just keep going all the way up the mountain, rather than just looking up at a mountain and saying, I'll just go up. It's like free climbing, just beginning to write. And what a treatment, I suppose, really is like having the safety gear with you.
I suppose the analogy would be that more people get injured whenever they're free climbing than they do whenever they're planning out the route.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, and it's the braver or madder ones that the free climb and the free write. If we could do it, we would do it, but we can't. It's the danger of falling off the mountain is just too big.
So 2 of you, you've got a rope attaching you to.
Yeah. And we're bringing each other down with this.
But seriously, for all of you, at any level, if you're writing ideas, try and find somebody that you can work with. I mean, even if you're in these force groups of 6 or 7, just open up your mind as much as possible and listen to everybody's ideas. But in the future, if you continue creating stories, if you're lucky enough to find somebody that doesn't kill you, or you don't kill after a day or a week or a month or a year in a room, hold on to them, you know, because it is invaluable. Otherwise you spend a lot of time talking to yourself and to your laptop and to friends who don't really care about how hard your writing is. So it's a great thing if you can make it work.
So we've finished our first treatment. We know the structure of our story. We've reviewed it, made sure that we know that that works from B to C and so on. Where next? What should we focus on next then?
Well, if I'm happy with my scene breakdown, then I start writing. I mean, I do indulge myself in like lots of films that might be in any way related to what I'm interested in. Anything in terms of tone, just even an actor that I want to watch, a theme, an idea, a period in time that I'm interested in. I allow myself to watch all that stuff and just be kind of, and just enjoy it, because it's a very hard process, and I think if you can find any kind of enjoyment in it, take it, and don't feel guilty about watching 3 films back to back if you're kind of getting something out of it. And once I feel ready and I have my scene breakdown, I just start writing. But I'll try and be disciplined and say I'm gonna spend all day writing. But if I hit a wall with a scene, you know, some scenes I'll bash out like 4 scenes quickly because I feel like I'm on a roll, and then I'll hit one. And it could be a very simple one, but I'll just be like, this isn't working, it's not right. And that one scene could take me like 2 days to kind of think how to work out. But I think it's important to just forgive yourself, because I think in the early days I used to get really panicked and think, oh, but I turned over like, you know, 4 or 5 scenes yesterday, I should keep on that roll. But it just doesn't happen like that. It just happens the way it happens, and I just allow myself that until it works. And I find that if you relax, it always does come to you, and just keep pushing through. But I have no schedule. Some writers, I think, can set themselves, 8 hours a day. I'll do 8 hours writing, and I'm always amazed at how they do that, because I don't have a regular time. It either happens for me that day or it doesn't. And some days maybe I'll do 12, and some days I'll do none. But I'll know what my deadline is, and I will always like try to meet it. But there's no kind of set structure for me. I just have to take each scene as I have it beside me on my scene breakdown, and think where's the best place and what's the best way to tell that.
And one of the nice things I think is if you are happy with your treatment and you know your
feels
150
safe,
scenes,
yeah.
but the great thing is if you hit a scene that for whatever reason isn't working, you can just skip it, and you can move down and get something that I know what that has to do. You can jump on ahead and then come back the next day, as opposed to you're banging your head off that one scene.
Yeah.
But
Because
only
you're
at
not
the
going
stage,
on course.
only at the stage if you know that they're all going to connect in the end.
Yeah.
That can be it can help you if you're having trouble in a particular spot.
Basically, because you've done the work in the treatment or the scene breakdown.
And that is the work. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know about a percentage on it, but it's at least 50, maybe 75%.
Well, you've
is getting
tackled a lot of the big problems there, yeah.
The actual writing of it we find relatively easy. It's the what are you going to write and where are you going to put it is the hard bit.
Yeah, I have a lot of mechanisms. But that's how I do it. But stick close to my breakdown. I've done all that work, so you'd be mad not to use it and for it to help you.
And one of the things whenever we're in production, not everything happens in order. Whenever you're writing a script, is it better to start at the beginning and go from there, or can you, if you're struggling and you know where you want to get to, can you move on ahead, or would you always go from A to Z?
When you're shooting?
Whenever you're writing your script, would you always do it in order?
Personally, I would just, I guess, mention I would only jump ahead if I was having a problem, if I really wasn't enjoying writing a particular bit. But even though if I knew that there had to be a way to crack it, I would sometimes, just jump a page or 10 scenes or something just because I want to do something I enjoy.
I can't move on until I've solved it. I think it's just an individual process, and you'll find it. And I'd love to be able to do that, because I think it's the clever way to do it. But something will annoy me if I haven't solved it, and I can only move on once I've solved it. I should do that.
just sometimes it helps kind of just free things. It doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And there's no set formula for doing this. Like with 4 people here that probably do it differently, and even John and Michael, I'm sure there's differences in the way that you work.
Yep.
How do you get past the moments that you're stuck? Whenever you hit that block, how do you get past it?
Basics. He said Lavery's, that's for another couple of years.
No, one way, I mean, just to get things rolling is just set up sometimes 2 voices. And it's nice to do a bit of freestyle and just to get out of the strictures of it and just to get the flow going. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be within your screenplay. It's just voice A, voice B, and just get them, basically get them in conflict and get them moving. And it'll just start flowing with you. And it's a way of just doing some just off-piece skiing, just say, well, at least I am writing now. This thing can sit over here a little bit, just there, and I can just have this fun with this piece. And once you get that moving, sometimes it's easy then just to kick back into your material. And when you're in those scenes, character wants something but's having a hard time getting it, and you just kind of staying in and around that little framework will serve you well to try to get some progress through the page with you. What do they want, and why are they having a hard time getting it? And what will happen if they don't get it? Because they'll be set up and there'll be jeopardy and there'll be stakes within the scene for you, and also within the macro of the entire screenplay, but also within the micro of the scene you're working on. And to see a character out there trying to solve a problem but having a hard time doing it, and it'll just keep you sort of just online a little bit.
And some people, some development guy we work with said, you know, that is story in a nutshell. You know, a character wants something very badly and is having a very hard time getting it. At least that should always be our starting and default position. I mean, if they don't really want it, why should we be sitting wasting our time watching them pursue it? And if it's too easy for them to get it, you know, it's not particularly entertaining, and they haven't done anything that admirable. So we tend to go back to basics if we get stuck and say, you know, why isn't the scene working? Saying, you know, well, what do the characters want in this scene? And it actually is surprisingly simple, and it's we ourselves as writers, as creative people, who get ourselves all confused. And whenever you get lost, if you just go back to basics, you usually find, oh, that's the thing. You know, they say they want this, and in the scene they're actually pursuing that, or they're getting it too easily, or the other character is giving in to them in the scene, and that's why it feels flat. There's no conflict, there's no force pushing back against them. But back to basics, I think, would be the answer.
We were on a scene 2 days ago, Wise Pies, and it was a scene, 6 hours we were on it. The scene was about that long on a page. We couldn't figure out what he wanted. This character that was in it. Once we figured it out, the scene just tipped in the writing. We wrote it in 5 minutes.
And it wasn't just, it was like 6 hours on it, we had it handed back to us by the producer and the
Six
director
weeks.
3 times in the last, and we know we're shooting this in a matter of days, and just back at you lads, you know, do better.
Make it better. Make it better.
Make it better. There's something better in there, and it turned out it was something really basic, where we actually said, after going through all these highfalutin and intellectual approaches to the scene and this and that and the other, we finally said, look, are we going to be ballsy here and say, he's actually going, his desire is wrong in this scene, this character is want, what he's trying to pursue is what's wrong. But we didn't want to look there because we had all this beautiful dialogue and stuff that was all pertaining to that. And by throwing out that, it means throwing out, you didn't want to throw out your babies, you didn't want to kill your babies. But when we finally did it, it was like 5 minutes, and then it was just like, oh thank God that's over with. Why didn't we do this 6 hours ago?
No joy in that at all.
And that was not sticking to basics stuff we were taught, you know, of what does your character want, and really be honest. It's an easy one just to grab an eye.
It can't just be a nice scene, can't just be well written, can't just be good crack. It has to be in the service of what that person wants over the film as a whole.
A couple of things you were just saying there were resonating with the little thing that we looked at on Tuesday night. I'm actually going to bring it up on screen and maybe get your thoughts.
Sure.
It's 22 rules that Pixar follow.
Yeah.
So some of these you might just want to pass over. Other ones we might just ask you just to give us your thoughts on them. And some of them are really hard to read. the grammar's pretty poor in them. Do you admire a character more for trying than for their successes? Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, like I always think of like characters or story situations as like in the way I feel towards characters. It took me years to realise was the way I felt towards people in real life. And it's like, you know, you admire people in real life for the effort they put into the stuff rather than, you know, their successes. And even in a movie example, I mean, the epitome of that would be something like Rocky, where he tries so hard that we tend to forget that he actually loses the fight at the end of Rocky. It feels like he's won. It's not about success, it's about
the journey
and desiring something that much.
Keep in mind what's interesting to an audience, not what's fun to do as a writer. They can be very different. So that's kind of what you were talking about there, about the scene. You had all the elements that you liked, but you had to change them because the producers were worried about the audience perception.
Exactly, yeah.
So very relevant. Trying for theme is important, but you won't see what the story is actually about until you're at the end of it. Now rewrite. Is it important to do your rewrites?
No, that's the only way you'll make it good. I don't know anybody who can sit down and write 100 pages and it'll be brilliant. I don't think that ever happens. Rewriting is the crucial thing, because that's when you will get input from the director if it's not you, or producers, or an actor, or lots of people would have input. But also yourself, as you're pointing out there, it's really when you get to the end and you can see it. That,
and it's entirely.
Yeah. And stuff that you can throw, you realise there's stuff you can throw away that you thought was crucial. So it's rewriting. Anybody can write 100 pages, but rewriting it to make it a film that's the hard bit.
Do you normally start off too long and have to reduce it down?
Yes, not drastically too long. There was a script that I was given a couple of years ago, which is 155 pages, but it was a drama. It was a story about a guy who found out he was going to die and what happened in the last year of his life, and nobody wants 2.5 hours of that. And also there's a kind of a bit of a myth that 1 page of a script will be a minute on screen, and it doesn't really necessarily work that way. Like on Mickeybo and Me, there was, I think, about 95 pages, and the first cut was nearly 2.5 hours long. So we cut nearly an hour out of it. So it's important just to keep trimming and trimming. But it's much easier to trim than it is to if you've got a script that's 70 pages long and it needs to be a feature film, and then you go, if that's the story, then you're just going to put stuff in that doesn't need to be there.
That's the wrong way to go about it. Well, we've all seen examples of this before, kind of hero's journey example. Let's skip on past that one. Simplify, focus, combine characters, hop over detours. You feel like you're losing valuable stuff, but it sets you free. So again, that's similar to what you're talking about there. Try to see sort of idea. I always like this one, particularly because of the image with Woody, the cowboy, and Buzz, the spaceman. What is your character good at? What are they comfortable with? Throw the polar opposite at them, challenge them. How do they deal with it? Is that a good storytelling mechanism, Bronagh? Would you?
Yeah, I think so, especially in TV, which is what I'm more familiar with. I think we start every series that I've written on for different shows. The first question when the writing team get back together for a new series is, okay, where do we want to throw this character into? What are they not good at? And that, because it just gives so much scope for drama. It can be a bit boring just seeing them constantly do what they're good at. We want to see them when they're struggling and when they're bad, and it's our starting point in television for every series. So that's where we start.
So I wasn't sure about this one, so I was keen to know your thoughts on it. Come up with your ending before you figure out your middle. Seriously, endings are hard. Get your working up front. Michael, any thoughts on?
Big thought on it. The one we're working on at the moment, Patch of Fog. We went for a year and a half struggling, 10 drafts, and the reason why is we didn't know our ending. We couldn't figure it out. And first 2 acts were great, and the third act just kept getting pushed back to us, and it just, we just literally, I mean, I'd say hundreds and hundreds of hours spent just trying to, a very simple question, how does it end, how does it end, how does it end? We could never have figured it. We figured it one day in the space of 1 minute, and it was done. I don't know how this rule works as a continuum throughout all stories. I think some people come up with the ending first and write it backwards and that, so I'm not sure as a rule how it applies across the board. Like some of these other rules are very solid. But I think an ending is just so important. It's crucial.
And crucially, it says there, you know, the word that's not there is opening or beginning. It says, you know, figure it out before you figure out the middle. You know, get your start, figure out what your idea is, and then say how you want it to end. Because the middle is where all the gnarly, difficult, complicated stuff goes on.
It's the story, isn't it? Yeah.
It's the really hard part. Yeah, but don't spend all your time on that and then realize you've got no ending because.
And the ending will tell you what your story is about. You know, not the beginning and the middle, but the end. When it finishes, like Cargo, you know, the sacrifice of a man for his child. So a very, you know, eternal type of theme or meaning. But the ending will give you what your story is, what your story is about.
I'm going to come back to that, the beginning, middle, and end idea. It's just another one of the questions I wanted to ask. Finish your story, let go even if it's not perfect. In an ideal world you have both, but move on. Do better next time. I think that's pretty straightforward.
It's a life lesson.
Life lesson, yeah, true. When you're stuck, make a list of what wouldn't happen next. Lots of times the material to get you unstuck will show up. Ronan, is that kind of like what you're talking about, you know, working out what you're going to throw your characters into?
Yeah, I suppose that's if you hit a wall, isn't it? And it's maybe what you guys were talking about, like when you can't seem to make it work, and you're wrecking your head trying to think what it is, then it's process of elimination. I've never tried this. I don't know. You guys might have in your one.
Looks like a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one where we say, you know, what's the one thing we absolutely know where this scene or story isn't going, and sometimes you're stuck. And the thing about it is, the scene's perfectly fine, but the two characters are saying the wrong things to each other. They're saying the lines the other person should be saying.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not working. So sometimes just to give something a 180-degree turn, and then it just opens up for you.
Another version of this is whenever you get somebody who isn't very smart, well, who's smart enough to spot a problem in the script, but not smart enough to fix it.
Right.
And they will go, okay, the bad version, I've got the bad version of how we do. The bad version is she goes and buys a gun and shoots him. And you go, yeah, but that's crap.
Yeah.
But what they're pointing at, what they're isolating is there's something really wrong here.
Yeah.
So it's the same idea. You go, yeah, think of all the bad versions, and then say, yeah, it's useful. I've never seen that before, but it's useful.
Francis Ford Coppola used to do that. You know, the guy did Apocalypse Now and stuff, and he rewrote the script for that. And I saw some article on his technique, and when he would come to write a scene, and also when he would direct, he would first, if he wasn't too sure, if it wasn't flowing, he would write down a list and say, what are all the ways to screw up this scene? What would I hate to see in this scene, either in the dialogue or when I'm directing it? And he would write, oh, that cliche or this, and he would actually plot out the scene badly, and then say, right, well, I'll just try and do the opposite of that. And then it would open up for him, and he'd be able to do it. Like, figure out what you don't want to do can lead you to what you should be doing.
I'm not with that anymore. Yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on some of those. Next thing I just want to have a look at is the actual physical art of screenwriting and the layout. And Terry, I'm going to sort of pick on you because you had sent through, there's copies there if you want to refer anything. I can find it on screen.
I can, oh, I see that, okay.
So this is the script for Mickeybo and Me. I noticed that you have this labelled as the shoot.
I think it is a shooting script. Yes, right. Yes.
So this is what you go out on set with then?
Yep. Yep.
So is there any place in particular we could jump to just for you to show, or even is the introduction a good place to start? Because it's quite descriptive. I mean,
well, one of the things that what we talked about with Cargo being a good example, and some of the ideas we were looking at beforehand, because we've got 3 strong ideas, is telling stories without people talking.
Yeah.
And again, trying to set the mood. I mean, the first scene is pretty much shot for shot exactly what ended up on screen. The second one is as well. So there's a little bit of voiceover. The voiceover that's in the script, we changed it when we got to the edit. We trimmed it back, and I mean, go down the page. There's some really bad voiceover here. I'm glad we changed it. Literally, how bad is that? I'm literally saying this story is not about those things. This is a story about friendship and blah blah blah. You know, that's the kind of line that might be on the poster, but that's crap voiceover. But somehow we've got overlooked. We still got to start the film. But the voiceover that's in the film is much more personal and more honest and shorter, and thankfully it's not that. So because that's another thing is things, you know, with voiceover, you can rewrite that 3 months after you've shot the film.
Yeah.
You can throw it away or add it in if you need it. So it's different that way. Page 2 again. There's again what I'm pleased with was that I wrote this all very visually, no dialogue, just telling a story, and I think it works hopefully it works on screen as well. And then, so it's at the bottom of the second page is the first time, apart from the children, the first time we introduce one of the adult characters, and it's Mickeybo's dad, and even the barman's line is cut. In fact, those first 2 lines are cut in the final edit. But quickly, what I wanted to do was to establish 2 things: that Mickeybo's dad was in the pub, which is exactly where Mickeybo would expect him to be. Also, his dad is of no use to him whatsoever. He's being chased by these guys. Any normal kid would stop there, but he doesn't. He runs through the bar and out the other side because he's still desperate to get away from these guys. That's all subtle stuff, but hopefully, it's there for a reason. The reason we put Mickeybo's dad there was to show those things, and that's about as much use as he is. He knows his son is being chased, but he's of the school of go and sort it out. Get the bastards instead of come here, let me sort this out for you. Yeah. He's a hands-off dad. He's not a helicopter parent.
So just looking at the different elements, because some people haven't written a script before, like they're in the bold writing. Tell us what you're doing with the bold writing.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing. I put those in bold. Very few other people do that, but for me, just to scan down the page, it helps the scene breaks jump out. And what I've also this is the script writing software that most people use is Final Draft, which is now really cheap. Actually, it used to be really expensive, but it saves you so much time, and it sets up all these things. You hit enter, and it'll take you to the beginning of the scene. You hit the next button, it'll take you to action. But you can adapt it. So I adapted the margins just to take the scene headings out a little bit, all that kind of stuff. Part of that, I think, was also because the 2 kids, the young actors that were in this, had never seen a script before, and I wanted to make sure that it read as cleanly as possible. But the way it breaks down is there's either interior or exterior, or if it's a scene that happens in both, it's I/E. Then you name your location, and then you put your time of day or night. And all of those things, once you start working in Final Draft, it'll be like your predictive text on your phones. Once you hit E, it'll come up exterior. Once you hit D, it'll give you day or dawn or dusk, and then you can. So it helps you write quickly. In regard to the structural stuff, it doesn't help your ideas come faster, but it helps you get that other stuff out of the way. So yeah, that's the way it will always be. The scene heading, as well as day, night, dusk, morning, all that kind of stuff. You can have another one which is continuous, which means the location changes. I think it's probably in that. It should. Maybe I didn't know that back then. Yeah, I didn't. Because if there's no time jump, then you put continuous. That it goes from. So the story is continuing at the same time, but just a different location. Those are the main.
And why do you number them?
Well, this when it comes to, I do this quite early as well for my own satisfaction. But ultimately, there are probably 15 different departments in a film shoot who need to communicate, and everything. Once you get to the stage of actually making it, is about communication. That if the bad version is if you turn up on set and you've got all your cast for scene 8. But actually you're shooting scene 9 that day, and somebody forgot to tell the actors and the art department and the location manager. So it's all about communication. So it's just much easier, instead of, if I'm talking to somebody on the phone, if I say, okay, go to page 55, right, the scene that starts halfway down page 55, it's much easier for me to say, just go to scene 17 and look at it there. So it's just about clarity of communication. Because when you do start shooting, then you'll be shooting things out of order. Unless there are some films that it makes sense to shoot them chronologically, but that doesn't often happen. So you might shoot, for people like the makeup department, for instance, in this film at one stage, one of the kids has a cut in his hand. And that happens, for instance, if that happens in scene 45, then the makeup department know that every other scene after that, he has to have the mark on his hand. And the costume department, if you've got a character who gets shot in scene 70, then, and there's blood down the sleeve, then the art department and the costume department will have to know that he has to have the costume with the blood on the sleeve. Even if you shoot that, you might shoot the last scene of the movie on the very first scene of your shoot. So they need to know. The art department will plan all the props and sets to follow the chronology of the story. The wardrobe department and the makeup department, which are crucial, because that's the kind of stuff that you'll notice if it's wrong on screen. They will plan what happens to the costumes as it goes through. This story really only took place, apart from the little flash forward at the end, over 8 days, and the kids hardly ever change. For the story days, they're on the run, so they don't change clothes at all. But the wardrobe department would have, I think, 4 or 5 different versions of the costume in different dirtier states, and they would know, they would plan it out on their copy of the wardrobe department, on their script. They would have little notes saying, what's happened in between the scenes to deteriorate their costumes and things. Then also just for communication from your editor, while you're shooting scenes all out of order, the editor, if he has all the shots, if the scene's been completed on set, he will start cutting that, and it might be a case, you might get a phone call late at night saying, okay, no, from the scene 3 days ago, we need a close-up that we didn't get, and it's scene 47, and a close-up to cover that last line. And that's something that you don't have to go back to the same location where it was shot, because if it's a close-up you can shoot almost anywhere if you can match the lighting in the costume. So it's just to make it all really, really clear, as the numbering thing just makes everything easier for people.
And even if you're, like, I'm thinking one of the films that the group across in the container room were thinking about was a sort of interview going on that then flashes back to other stories. So every time it goes back to the interview room, it would be a new scene in the breakdown.
Yeah.
So that keep numbering that. Yeah. Great. And names in capitals, is that?
Again, this was the first script I'd ever written. You should only put the name in capitals the first time you introduce a character, and then after that you shouldn't.
Okay.
That's my understanding of it. But I didn't know that back then, and everybody was polite enough not to tell me I was doing it wrong. Because it's.
And plus, you just want to write fart face over and over in capital letters.
That was the moderate version. In the play, his name was much worse. The capitals thing. A lot of writers, I don't know if you guys do it, they use a lot of capitals as part of the action if you want to really make something jump out. I'm not a big fan of that, but maybe it's particular genres. It's probably like if you're writing a horror thing or a thriller, maybe you need that stuff to jump out. But yes, every new character gets a capital just to.
And something that I just saw on the scripts that were being written last year, quotation marks. We don't use quotation marks for dialogue. How do you properly format the...
Well, the character's name will be in the middle, and then the good thing is if you have one of those, there's free script writing software as well as Final Draft, and it'll have decided the columns there, the width of the dialogue. Also, underneath each character, you can put in brackets, parentheses, if you want to put in something that 1 or 2 words to describe the performance, like if it's sarcastically or angrily, stuff like that. Actors often refer to those as Rileys, because a lot of writers would write that they say something Riley, and you're like, it's just a ridiculous thing to do. I want you to say this Riley. So they can be distracting or they can be very useful.
I suppose it was different for you. You were writing this to direct it yourself. Is it different then if you're writing for another director to take it?
I don't think so. No.
You go through the same process.
Yeah. I would write it just in the same way, and then if there are times because I can see how in my head it would be directed, or how the scene plays out, and there's times I'll be talking to a director and they'll say something and it'll be so wrong. And I go, but look, it says there. Oh, is that what you meant? So, it is all about communication and